They turned out to be completely unreliable assholes.
Hey, Tim.
Hi, Ryan.
Hey, good morning.
How are you?
Good, and hello to our listeners, and Happy New Year. It's December for us still, but our voice from the past speaking to you from our future, your present, our present. God. It is New Year, so Happy 2019, everyone, and welcome to episode 19 of Dismembering Horror. This is Ryan.
Hi, I'm Tim.
Great, Ryan and Tim, here we are, just for you. And we're going to talk about a Finnish film today, I believe.
Finnish. Those skins.
Yeah.
Is that appropriate? Can I call them scans, or is that like...
I've never heard it before.
I just made it up.
It sounds offensive, but...
It's not meant to be. I just don't want to have to say Scandinavian. It's such a long word.
Scandinavians.
Scandies.
It sounds even worse.
Yum, yum, yum. Let me eat those Scandies.
Do you have anything you want to bring up? I don't know. I'm ready to get into this one because previous weeks I've had to catch up with different things, but I don't really have anything.
No.
Okay. I'm kind of just excited to talk about this movie because I really need help figuring out what I thought of it.
Yeah, I could see that.
It's kind of a weird movie to deconstruct. So let's do it. Okay, so we're going to play the trailer here for Lake Bodom.
Mikä paikka tää on? Onko hiljasta?
Mä haluan kertoa sulle jotain.
What a trailer.
Yeah, I'd never seen it before.
Gosh, where to begin?
Well,
I guess we could just synopsis it.
Yeah, that's where we begin.
Go for it.
Okay, summary. Yes. We have, oh God. So two Scandinavian horror, not horror, but murder, true crime, thank you. Mm-hmm. Two Scandinavian teenage high school true crime boy enthusiasts coerce two female friends of theirs, acquaintances, to, unbeknownst to the women, join them for a recreation of a famous actual murder that happened.
Probably the most famous, maybe, in
at
Finland.
Lake Bodom, with the hopes of luring the original killer, or I think for some reason,
right?
Because they want to prove that they're cool,
that they could solve it.
Yeah. Right, that's what they got accused of. But that's what I took away from it. There's my summary. And then twists and turns abound, whether you like it or not.
Ever.
Yeah.
I mean, I even came up with some that weren't in the movie.
Yeah. Well, it could put you in that kind of mode. Oh, this is going to happen. Oh, that's going to happen.
Totally.
Would you add anything to that?
The only thing that I think is relevant is that one of the girls, the sort of, I guess you would call the main character, has sort of some high school trauma, shit going on.
Right.
Like she
brought her...
not ostracized, well, sort of.
She brought her family shame.
Yeah.
By having nude photos taken of her while she was passed out at a party.
Right.
Which may not have actually happened as far as the photos were nude.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Or something.
Or that they were taken.
Yeah.
Twist.
Right, or kind of. Anyway, how would you rate it?
I think I would just say stream it.
To you?
Yeah.
That's our rating system, is us talking to us.
Yeah, I think just stream it. It's got some stuff that I like, but I don't think enough to spend $4 on.
I concur with your stream it rating, which is interesting because I don't know. I mean, part of I think why it's on this list, I guess I put it on there, but it appears on a lot of lists, and like looking at now reviews, it's on Rotten Tomatoes and all that. It has people only seem to like it. So I feel like we're the odd men out here.
Maybe.
So please, if you just watched this,
well, this will become, I think, an interesting conversation potentially.
Yeah.
Between the two of us.
Maybe at the end of this, we're gonna just switch it to buy. We're gonna wish we bought it.
You know why? It's because we can't not be manipulated by the fucking attractive Scandinavians. They just are too attractive.
Right, and their beautiful parties, right? When watching it, even their parties are perfect.
The lighting is so nice.
Yeah, Tim was like, this locker room is so nice. I'm like, I think that speaks more to how like American locker rooms are versus how, elsewhere in the world.
Flashbacks. High school.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you an anecdote right now.
Okay.
When I was in middle school, I was late for gym class. And I ran into the locker room and I was leaning down. I was like leaning against the wall, tying my shoe. And this kid, one of like four pretty rough kids in my class. He's like 5 years older than everybody. He'd been held back and all that. Troubled kid. But generally nice. Like I never had a problem with him. We were always cordial and whatever. He walked in and I looked up and I was like, "What's up, dude?" And he just sort of nodded at me and I looked down and I kept tying my shoe, and the next thing I knew, he was holding a knife to my neck.
Whoa.
In real life. And I, froze and kind of looked at him and I was like, "What are you doing?" And he had this like super intense, angry look on his face, like he was gonna kill me. And that lasted a couple seconds maybe. And then he like pulled the knife away and his whole demeanor changed and he started laughing. He was like, "Ha, fucking gotcha."
Whoa. He just needs to like...
I was like, that...
He just needs to like hold control,
I guess, man.
Wow.
It was so intense. I never told any adult.
Well, now you're telling the world.
Now the world knows. I'm not going to name that kid's name. It was
Watch your back, Tim.
Very intense.
Okay. And then middle school.
Middle school. Well, he was older, like I said. So I was probably in 8th grade and he was... So how old are you in 8th grade? 12?
12, yeah.
Yeah, he was probably 15.
That's a good thing to set the tone for this film, because one of the things that was interesting about it was it's based on a real life... No. This is what was interesting about this film. It's not based on real life murders. It's how do you put it?
It's not even that it... Well, it's predicated on the idea that... Well, I mean, this is any fucking story, so I don't know why they kind of said this at the beginning, but they kind of like, these murders happened in real life. There were murders that happened in real life. This movie is
a version of those events.
But no,
but it's not.
But it's not. It's a version of like what could have happened,
right? But
in response to the. It's
right.
Like, why did you even say that? Of course, that's what it is.
Right.
Right. Like,
just to say that they were real things that had happened.
Yeah. So just say that.
Yeah. It was confusing.
I agree. It was
because
what
I said I'm pretty sure is what it said.
Yeah.
Was that this is I thought we were gonna watch something in the 60s that was an interpretation of what had happened.
That's not what we want.
Do you think that was just lost and finished into English translation?
So I think what they're trying to say is that this movie is not a depiction of what happened, but it is a depiction of a possible scenario that could happen in the real world of those murders.
Right.
Of those original murders, which is just to me a very odd conceit or structural sort of thing to put out there. Like, they're trying to say this movie exists in the real world.
Yeah. They're trying to give it that weight.
Right.
Well,
Based on true events kind of thing.
Yeah.
But like post facto.
Right. In the kind of like The Strangers Pray at Night.
Oh, dude. Sure.
A friend of mine listened...
Yeah. This is better than that movie.
Yes. Well, not according to my friend, really loved that film, Strangers Pray at Night. And I kind of want to get his blurb on this podcast to give us a minute defense, because I think it's important if we ragged on a movie.
That'd be cool.
To like hear... We don't want to... We aren't the end-all authority on any of this. We
That's a good
acknowledge
idea.
that.
We should have... Yeah, we should like have a space in here for rebuttals.
Yes, exactly. I think that'd be cool.
Maybe people we know can either record, like you could record a rebuttal of your, like just on your iPhone and send it to us somehow. That'd be fucking cool.
Great. I'll get him to do it. Yeah. That'll be your first one.
Sweet.
Okay, let's figure out this movie and talk about what worked for us.
All right, let's do it.
What worked for you? What worked for you? What worked for you?
It worked like a charm, Smith.
What worked? What worked for you?
I feel like I say this almost every time, but I'm going to say it again. Obviously not every time, but when it's working, it's working. The cinematography of this is really nice, and it's really well shot, and there are some very beautiful woods and just exterior shot. I mean, even like we were just saying, even the party scene, like it's cool. Like it's not just a rote sort of here's a high school party.
And even the locker room, that scene, or that was like a long take.
Yep, there's atmosphere, and
You know what, Tim? I liked how the beginning was shot, the driving shots, all that. I'd agree with you. I thought it was this is pretty filmmaker geeky here, but I thought they were able to give a good variety of how they shot inside of their car at the beginning driving there. It's kind of always a tricky thing to do is shoot inside of a car.
You know what? That's amazing now that you mention this, because usually I notice in the car shots, and I did not at all in this, which means they were doing something right, because I was not thinking about the fact that they were in a car.
It was good variety, and it looked like they were working with that. They didn't have like the car mount thingy, you know, the whatchamacallit, where like the car is on a sort of system to shoot outside of it. It looked like they were really in the car doing it and had a good variety.
They used some interesting angles that we don't see all the time. Like there is a angle, a high-low angle actually, that frames in a two-shot both the driver and Ida, the blonde girl, behind him. And he is having a conversation with her through the rearview mirror. He's never looking really over his shoulder. He's just kind of talking into the mirror. But they're both in the shot. And it's from above, which seems like it would be kind of hard to do, right? Because there's the ceiling of the car.
Yeah.
But they managed to widen that shot out enough to make it get both of them.
The station wagon gave them some more room. Are those roomy interiors? I liked, there was one that was
Volvo.
There was one from the back of the station wagon, like back centered looking forward, and we see, you know, each of the sides. And it was reminiscent, or a shot that came later was reminiscent of it, where there's a shot inside of the tent, sort of straight on from behind, looking forward at the entrance.
Sure, yeah.
I like both of those shots.
That's interesting, yeah.
So I had those things worked for me about how it was shot, and I also have some things that didn't work for me we'll get to about how it was shot.
Yeah.
I mean, I have some other big, like, basics, too, I guess, just to get out of the way as far as what worked for me. The editing, I thought, was really well done. Yeah. Kept the momentum going. Made a lot of the moments, like, ring true for me. You know, gave everything a good amount of weight.
Yeah. Again, it's not, you know, I wasn't thinking about it.
Exactly. That's
a
when
good
I
sign.
realized it, yeah. And then more basics, the performances.
Yep.
Are great.
Everybody's good.
How old do you think they all were?
In real life?
Yeah, the actors.
They're young. Well, I think Nora could be older, but
I just felt like it was one of those cases where they were all probably closer to 20 than 17.
maybe. Yeah. I get well, I think the girls are supposed to be. Are they all supposed to be the same year?
Probably.
Yeah, maybe. I think Ida seems younger. I think it's mentioned once that she might be a year or two younger.
Not that younger people can't give great performances.
No. What I mean is the character is supposed to be younger.
Oh, right.
So I think, but the actress, yeah, they all.
No,
seem...
I mean, it just seemed like for me that they did have those few extra years on them to sort of bring, that acting prowess of a certain color.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. Any standout performances to you? Pretty just solid ensemble.
Yeah, they're all kind of on the same. Nobody's bad. Nobody's like, oh man, they really stole the show.
Yeah. Well, I like
except for older Mads Mikkelsen,
right?
The dad.
The dad. Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was a good combination of like where comparing it to another In the Woods film we watched, The Ritual. If you remember, one of our complaints about that was just like the sort of internal struggle that all the characters had going on were kind of one note and not too deep.
Yeah.
But how the characters were written and performed in this, like I was getting pretty set up where it's like, okay, that's actually an interesting level of conflict they're talking about. Like
I think they actually, the only one they kind of sell short is Elias.
Yeah.
You don't really, I think we're supposed to glean a backstory from his appearance alone, that he and maybe in Finland,
right,
a darker complexion, dark hair, punk, tattooed kid is an anomaly enough, or like an outcast or outsider enough that you just go, yeah, I know who that is.
Even though if we didn't get enough, or not enough, but we didn't get comparatively as much backstory with the guys as the girls, which was fine. Like I felt like each of the guys had their moments that made them feel grounded, three-dimensional. Like I bought them as real. And for the kid you were just talking about, Elias, it was when he was trying to sort of say that smarmy kind of like, oh, women just want love, guys just want sex or something like that. And the way... was it Nelly or no, Ida?
Ida.
With the way Ida sort of rebuted that and put him in his place.
So guys don't want love?
Yeah, right. Yeah. It felt like it was everything I needed to know about his character then in a way that felt true. It was cool.
Yeah.
And then I forget, I think it was when I liked the moment where the girl, was it Nora asked Ate? No, it was Ida again. Asked Ate, the two blondes. That's how there were two brunettes and two blondes. That's how we're keeping track. When she asked him, it was, why did you say that to me about, what did you mean by that with saying like Catholic or Bible thumpers are only, everything's about sex to Bible thumpers.
Yeah.
And then the way he said, I don't know, I was just running my mouth off, I'm sorry kind of thing. It resonated as a true moment.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Yeah, that's funny you bring that up. That dodge, I guess, that human people in real life do, drives me fucking nuts. When you get called out on something, and your response is, oh, I was just joking. I was just in the moment. I'm always like, fuck you. No, like... But you're being called out for a reason. Yeah. It's true. Yeah. I mean, this is a true moment because people do this all the time. So it worked, right? Like it got me wound up.
It was what I liked about it. Here's what I was getting at was rather than the sort of leaving the conversation at, oh yeah, you were just running your mouth, whatever. He like went on to sort of describe what was coming, what was coming from it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, did he?
Sorry. I just had a better point I was trying to make that I lost when I was saying it. I apologize to everyone and you, Tim.
I accept your apology.
Thank you. Well, what else worked for you about this film?
I mean, I liked the ride of it. I thought that it, like, kind of what you were saying, like the momentum is good. It's it gets to it, right? Like, it doesn't sort of belabor anything. It's like, it's well paced. It structurally sort of moves to the next moment well and effectively.
And the moments are really centered around twists that happen, or sort of story reveals, backstory reveals about the motivations of the different characters. Oh, there's no actual cabin. Oh, the girls, da-da-da.
Yeah, and I think something that you see that doesn't work in other movies is they'll kind of get stuck on a particular moment and redo it a bunch of times. It's like you see the same basic conversation happening over and over again. Like, we're lost in the woods. Like, we keep going in circles. And then the conversation is them just fighting about that over and over again, which is kind of what happened in The Ritual.
Ritual. You made me think of that before you said it.
And you see that this doesn't do that at all. It's like, it's pretty much like each scene has is connected by a therefore.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like this happened and therefore this next thing is going to happen and therefore the next thing is going to happen, as opposed to and thens.
This is kind of, I mean, I didn't have a whole lot, honestly, in, big things that worked for me, but I guess essentially I have something that you were just saying. It just kind of sounds like a backhanded compliment I wrote. It was pretty fun getting the story doled out.
Yeah.
Like we had, okay, so this is where, who did this? Oh, where the picture is real. Oh, like, I don't know.
Yeah, I guess that's sort of what I mean. Like, we got on the ride.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted to know how they were gonna, like, what their fucking plan was once they killed the two guys. I was like, what? Now I'm interested. Like, how do you guys think you're gonna get out of this?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
And you're not. Like, you're definitely not.
And it was at that baseline pretty fun. That's like exactly what I want for a good, like, stream horror movie, watching with a friend, which is exactly what we are doing. Like,
I found there's certain movies where I feel like I should keep my mouth shut. And this was not one of them. Where I was like, I want to sort of comment on everything, and I don't feel bad doing that.
Because it wasn't quite, it was weird because it was set up, in this sort of stark, grounded, I keep saying based on, true events happened in the world of this film, is I guess what it was.
Right.
Yet pretty quickly the tone switches to like, okay, but this is also has modes of a slasher film in it, like with the kills, like where it all of a sudden took away that sort of that somber air of like, you wouldn't want to speak during it.
Yeah. No, I think this has kind of a, oh shit, what's the word? It's sort of like, it's almost in a weird way, like light and airy kind of tonally. It's, even though the content is dark, it's got a bit of irreverence to it of like, hey, we're on this ride too. And we want you to be enjoying it. Especially when the girls commit the murder and you get that reveal. It's kind of like, it's shot in a almost like a fun adventure movie way. And you're like, cool.
Yeah, with them having to get the keys from the lake. And
yeah, man, like that whole sequence I really like. I love any movie where the plan, you think the plan is working and like the one thing is fucked up and they have to solve that fuck up. I love that shit. It's fun. It's exciting. It's like, oh, how the fuck are they going to get out of this kind of thing? I love that stuff. So them having to go back and like, that's a fun setup, like having to dive down into a lake and open a body bag and fish keys out of it.
Yeah.
That like tickles a lot of things for me.
Yeah.
For one, I don't know if you notice it, but anytime somebody dives underwater in a movie, I have to hold my breath.
I heard you do that.
I have to. I'm like, I want to know how long can I hold my breath?
This is so like such a specific moment, but honestly, I think my favorite part about it, and this I guess speaks to how I felt about it overall, and where my mind was at and what I was wanting. But the car flip was such a good car flip.
It really
I was really
yeah.
impressed. Not since The Babysitter had we seen some good
Yeah.
car stunt action.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, yes, I totally agree. They obviously had money. Like
Yeah.
there's some really good, like the budget or their use of the budget, whatever the budget was. I didn't actually find.
Well,
that
I think
anyway,
that's why it was one of those things where it's like, because they were certainly on a budget, they give whatever they're going to do with it, they're going to care more and pay more attention to it.
Yeah.
So like the car flip looks really good.
It does. There are some beautiful shots in this too.
Mm-hmm.
Like beautiful, like in the woods. There's a point when Nora is in a kind of a little gully, and they had a gigantic light that they were using to mock the moon, but they don't overtly try to make every shot realistic, right? Like there's so the shot I'm talking about is Nora kind of climbing out of the woods, and my stomach is growling. I'm so sorry, everyone. So rude. So Nora is climbing out of the woods, and there are, sparse trees kind of over her head, like beyond her. And that light that they're using is so brightly blown out behind that and creating this nice silhouette. And it's a beautiful shot. Like everything in that shot is in focus, foreground and background. Like it's really, really, really pretty to look at, and creepy and artistic. Like it's got a lot going on for it. And there's a number of those. So, I guess that's to say that even if aspects of the story are not, the greatest, I still really liked watching this because it's borderline slick, but not too slick. It's not Transformers where you're like, all right, there's too much.
Or totally David Fincher, or maybe more.
Sure. But even
comparable
Fincher, I
film.
think, has some griminess to him.
Yeah. I just think of maybe more like Gone Girl aesthetic of just as far as just how it's shot so deliberately. That's
true. But there are really, I mean, the director of this movie, I think, is way better than the writing of this movie.
I agree with that.
So I'm curious to kind of investigate other stuff that
I have a good amount in
he's
things
done.
that didn't
His name
work.
is Tenelli Mustonen.
Sorry.
Mustonen. I don't know if it's
you
right.
you just said you
damn
wanted...
it, he wrote it too.
No, you
Well, he's a really good director.
well, you just said what you just said. Sorry, I thought you were going to say something else, which is like you were curious. You just said you were curious to see what else he's done, and I just looked it up, and he hasn't done anything since this, as far as according. Actually, maybe we should double check that because that wasn't on IMDb. But I thought you were going to say, oh, you're curious to figure out, to talk about what didn't work, which I am too, and also things of note.
No, I am,
because I have more in those.
I think just a couple other just little things. I just like the. I personally like the twist and turniness of this.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was a little... There was a moment where I go, this movie doesn't have anywhere to go if it's not going to be a series of weird twist and domino sort of things.
Where that's a sort of what it became, what it was about.
Yes. And so, knowing that, and when and sort of when the first hint of that happened, I felt like I kind of knew the rest of the time. I was anticipating the rest of the time. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I actually like that. Like, because this movie doesn't have enough underneath it, I think, without that stuff. It would just be a boring kind of slasher in the woods movie.
I mean, honestly, that's what it kind of was to me. Because those things...
The twistiness didn't hold you enough?
No, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
I like it.
It was sense. Again, it was pretty fun getting it dolled out. That's what I'll put it at.
Yeah.
But the last thing I had that worked for me And I can see maybe why, if you're watching this and you're super into it, why you'd leave on such a high note is because I thought the tail ending was really neat. Not the, I guess the way ending was the next group of kids coming to now see where this other murder had happened. The second murder, 2 famous murders now. But it was when the bad guy, the original killer, presumably...
Tow truck.
Yeah, finally recreated the original murders with the 2 girls, kind of what was originally set up in a way. I thought that was the sort of true horror in this film. Like, the kills before didn't really have me up till this. I was never really in much suspense up until this point. But there was something just like really wicked, disturbing, and intense about how it was shot and the context of it, of the guy
the mouth gluing.
Yeah.
That's great.
Just like they were like those sort of almost like Saw-like quick cuts of into black and out of black. I thought were effective
and not overdone.
Yeah,
that stuff only happens, I think, in the third act, and only 3 sort of brief little snippets of it. Yeah, and it's enough.
So I think that this was my favorite part of the film, was just that segment, because it felt like the whole movie I was waiting for a horror movie to happen. And then it happened in the sort of last, the 5-minute set piece of the killer getting these poor women in his clutches.
Yeah. My last thing is to sort of step back from the actual content of the story. Well, from the story. No, what am I trying to say? From the action of the story. Thematically speaking, I really like this sort of high school is fucked up. And like kids' brains are not in a good place, especially if they're being fucked with. Right? And I think that there's a lot of cool and just sort of unsettling reality to the undertone story of what this movie is really about.
Yeah, well, which was interesting because I felt like that was one I hadn't picked up on, but is totally is full on there. And then there's a couple others just sort of like, not quite themes, but like as if, you're trying to explore something, I guess themes, exploring ideas. But it was like there was a handful going on, and when I tried to connect them, they weren't all necessarily there. It felt like there's a lot of ideas at the undercurrent that you could at any given time latch onto, but they never coalesced together.
No, I agree.
So that's why I had a few things that were like worked for me in that same sense on their own, but I think I ended up putting them in things that didn't work for me because it was like as a movie,
not quite enough. As
a whole, it did actually ended up detracting.
Sure, I get that.
Yeah. Well, can we talk about all that?
Let's get into it. What do we call this? Things that did not work.
Yes.
It's not ready yet.
Seems to work okay.
No, something important's missing.
What did not work?
Can I just start with one really broad thing?
Yeah.
The first 45 minutes of this movie are just a series of completely dumb decisions. Like leaving each other alone. There's a bunch of this sort of shit. Now I wish I had a list.
Okay, well, here, I think I can curtail off that being an issue for you. Because what that sums up what was my main qualm with this film, like where you said stupid decisions being made. That wasn't bugging me in that sort of direct sense that you just put it at, because I could tell that they knew that the writers, the filmmakers, these were aware that these were sort of annoying genre conventions or like things that, happen in horror film, whatever.
Yes.
So like my kind of, how I summed up what didn't quite work for me is that like the screenplay, maybe more than the direction, it felt like they were aware of these genre conventions, and like you read the reviews for these films and they're all like, oh, it plays on these tropes and usurps genre conventions, but yet it demonstrated the knowledge, but never did anything with it for me. It never used that to its advantage. It
Right.
like in a way that it felt fully satisfying ever.
Well, and I think their sort of conceit or their justification in a way is like, yeah, but in everybody's in on it, right? Even the characters.
Yeah.
So they're in on it. So it's okay for Nora to be like, no, just leave me.
Yeah.
But it's not okay for Elias to agree to that.
Right.
Like, that's fucking insane.
And it doesn't
put
mean...
her on your shoulder and
Right.
get the fuck out of there.
Right.
Right. So to me, it's such a fine line between maintaining the twist and the sort of the what am I trying to say?
Well, it's like
the story, the things that people know.
Yeah. The things that are like how they're 2-3 steps ahead of us.
Right. Maintaining that, but you still have to have character logic. And if one of those characters isn't in on the thing,
Yeah.
and they do something completely illogical, they better get convinced to do that. They can't just be like, okay, sure.
I guess, yeah. It felt like I just said 2-3 steps ahead. It felt like that was in a bad way, where because it was only
Yeah.
sort of like looking ahead to what was going to happen now, I never was really fully enjoying it as it was happening. Like the perfect example, I think, is I remember when you were like, you called this tent scare where it's like, oh, he went off to pee and he's not coming back. And you're like, I bet you $1,000 he's going to scare him. And I'm like, well, yeah, of course. But then I knew at the same time that the movie was aware of these conventions. So I thought maybe it wasn't going to happen or there was something going to be different with it.
Yeah, that they would do just a little different version
But then
of this.
it did happen.
And it happened exactly the way
but then you
always
see,
does.
But then you see that was still intentional because that was used to set up this sort of then reoccurring thing of like, of, oh, they're just teasing us. Oh, they're just teasing us. So it was one of these examples that people reference as far as like being aware of genre tropes and playing on it. Yet why that doesn't work for me is because it still played as a lame false scare when it happened. Just like it's like they were aware of that. That's kind of why I started off saying in summation, they're aware of it happening, yet it doesn't use it to any benefit.
Well, and I think we talked about a similar sort of construct during Insidious. It's kind of the same thing as using the jump scare to prime, and when you do it 2 or 3 times early on, we're spent, right? Like we've already gotten the adrenaline rush from the first few that got us to kind of jolt. And so by the time you get around to actual content that's worth paying attention to, you're no longer primed up. None of that ends up being scary because you already had the spike of adrenaline and now the come down from it. So it doesn't quite pay off. I think a better version of that is kind of what you're saying. It's like, get the audience thinking about the convention. Don't do it. Don't do any of it. Completely avoid it. And that keeps you kind of on edge. And we've seen this in other movies where we've been like, oh man, they really, drew out the tension leading up to an actual moment. Like you kept thinking, oh, when's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? And it doesn't. And that gets you fucking way more primed for when a thing does happen, especially in a movie that is a twist movie. Don't set us up to go, oh, I know a twist is going to happen. Fucking make us surprised when the twist happens. Yeah. Because if you do this other thing where you're kind of leaning in and pointing at it,
well, it was though.
Then we don't care.
They were, yeah. I mean, I already said it, but it's like they at the expense of them saying, okay, we're doing the twist, even though you weirdly know about it. We're not weirdly, but even though you know about the twist, we're doing it anyways in service of this later thing.
Right.
It's still just makes it so you don't enjoy it when it first happens. Like that's what I meant. Like it was at a weird trade-off.
I agree. And I still kind of enjoyed it.
Yeah. I just had the
but
thought,
it could be done better, I think is
yeah. The lake dive scene, which you were just saying, and when I was thinking about it, oh, it was pretty cool. But then I just added to what didn't work for me about it was I can't think about why it mattered to have it at all. It just seemed like it made the movie 10 minutes longer.
Well, I mean, it is just conflict roadblock kind of thing, hurdle to get over. They fucked up.
Yeah.
That's good.
I don't know, but it's like nothing else. They weren't. I wanted to see them like that's why the actual killer was able to catch them. It
is because when she was standing on the rock yelling and shit, he's across the lake with his flashlight. They show that once.
I just want to make sure that maybe now it did not work so much.
But having said that, shut the fuck up. You don't know if anybody else is camping around that lake. You're sitting there on a rock yelling full fucking force like...
Actually, she does know someone was camping because she saw...
Yeah, she saw it earlier. Yeah. She knows somebody's around. What the fuck, dude? Like, shut up. Stop yelling. Like, be secretive. Be quiet. Like that. We would get more into it. Instead, she's up there being like, Ida, you got the keys to the car of the boys that we just killed.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, what? Shut up.
Well, I mean, I kind of like that as far as it's
she's dumb.
Well, it's showing the sort of audacity of someone who's the killer themselves, thinking that they're invulnerable.
Yes, and I think she's. I'm not trying to shit on the character too much because I think that there's some cool stuff in making Nora this basic fucking psychopath, right? Like her motivation is so misguided, and she really is the antagonist of the film, right? Like she's the one who sets all of this emotion.
She manipulates her quote unquote friend's life in order to have her for herself.
Right, because she has a fucking high school crush. And that's what I mean when you get into that. Like, I like getting into that. The idea of like, when you're an adolescent, you do and think crazy ass shit. Where's the line between that and being a complete and actual sociopath or psychopath? Like, it feels, I think, for all a lot of people on either side of it, whether you're the kid or the parent or whatever, it feels like a very fine line at times.
Yeah,
and I think exploring that of what it feels like to be an adolescent is something that's fun to play around with. They don't lean in too hard on it in the thematic sense. It's just kind of there, and I got it. Like, I took it that away with me, where I'm like, I like that. It's fun. Mm-hmm. But they're not heavy-handed about it. I just think it's a cool theme.
Yeah.
So I'm cool with her being a maniac. But also, if she's smart enough to plan all of this, she should be smart enough not to shout on a fucking rock at the lake when they're standing over bodies that they just dropped in it.
Right, but she's not smart enough to plan all of it because they didn't get away. Yeah.
Well, yeah, so there's some nuance, I think, here that you can play around with as a writer, where you can do stuff to kind of show the audience. Like, for example, Halloween actually did this a little bit. Remember with what's the fucking doctor's name?
Loomis?
Yeah, not Loomis. So Not Loomis has a scene or two before we see the twist of him turning and being crazy, where he's acting fucking weird and frantic and unpleasant, and I thought, God, his acting sucks, and then you realize there's a point to it. You could do something like that with her too. Just have Ida go, dude, we don't know who's around here. Like, you're being manic right now. Calm down. Like, shut the fuck up.
You're right.
It's little things like that. You can
like
service yourself in those moments to diminish the audience feeling that your characters are being illogical.
It was, if you're saying this movie kind of wrote an interesting balance between being like realistic and not realistic, it was one of those where, situationally it should have been more realistic.
Right.
It felt like it was overlooking something.
Yeah.
I mean, that maybe I realized why I couldn't get super into this movie was had to do with that balance of like stark realism versus you know a slasher film, because like I felt like I was set up for something that was more like, did you see that movie, The Snowtown Murders, was it called? That was like Australian movie.
I tried to start it and I haven't watched it.
Or just something where it's like, because of the setup of the real life murder, I was primed for something that was more way simple and stark and you wouldn't want to talk over. Like something that was that level of seriousness. But then it was just this...
It never was that.
Yeah, it was...
I don't think it was intending to.
Right. It became a very character-centric and a kind of more screenplay-y kind of way of
it's a movie. It is a movie.
Yeah, going with these twists of the characters. And so, yeah, I'm like, okay, well, it's kind of fun. But I don't know, just that setup I felt like would have been a more interesting setup for, like, I really wish it was just... you know, the delivery of the movie that it set up. I would have much preferred that, where it is like these two boys get these two girls to come out with them, things don't go right, and that's I would have just wanted that movie.
Yeah, and I mean, even when we initially turned it on, and the kind of the what do you call it, like the cover page kind of image before you hit play is just them sitting around a campfire in the woods. And I was like, ooh, yeah, cool. Like in the woods campfire, like shit's gonna go bad movie.
And the setup all in itself was good enough where I was kind of invested in the characters and the situation, that as soon as it sort of just, you know, the twist happened to show you it wasn't that, I'm like, actually, I was kind of enjoying that. And I was I was only sort of, I mean, that's my critique. I mean, yeah, I was as soon as I was invested into the new thing, they introduced yet another thing, and I stopped caring.
Okay, so that is a perfect segue into what I think they could have done to make all of this work way, way better.
Can I just sort of, as an example, say what?
Yeah,
you remember that thought?
Let's see if you're going to say what I'm about to say.
Well, yeah, just that like I was never able to sympathize with the characters or the situation entirely because of these new things being introduced and it becoming about that. So that felt more, it felt like I was only ever sort of teased with sympathizing with the characters and situation because of the twists. Because of the twist happening in such a way where it's like, as soon as I started caring about the characters and situation, a twist would happen and completely change it.
Well, and also, like if you were feeling any sympathy for either Nora or Ida, the second we know that they planned this, we're like,
right.
Well, okay, well, my sympathy for them is gone.
So as soon as I was, as soon as I was into like the actual setup story of the boys' luring them out there, and sympathizing with the women, then all of a sudden the twist was that it was the girls. And then as soon as I was into that, the girls' inner conflict of their escape, and then the one, Nora kind of taking control over Ida and like hitting her in the face and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So as soon as I was into that conflict, then all of a sudden it was the killer again. And I felt no real sympathy for the girls at that point.
Well, and you had said too, like in that moment, suddenly they're best friends again.
Yeah, right. All of a sudden, so it just like completely.
Which maybe that's just high school.
Yeah, it is. But it as far as my investment in it as a story, it's like completely nullifies, I don't know, any interest I have at any given point. You know, as it nullifies what came before it versus sort of using it as like, oh, a twist. It's not what we thought it was.
So I agree with all of that. It still leads me to what I think they could have done, and I think it would have solved this. It's a different movie though, but because of how they set all of this up, and we spend the first maybe half, probably a little more than half of the... Well, no, we spent about half the movie thinking it's one thing, then we get twist, it's the girls. After that, so 2/3 of the way through, I guess, suddenly we get into this flashback, and you get a bunch of backstory of like how things led to this. Things that had been talked about, right? Suddenly we're back in high school. It's Nora recounting why she did what she did, essentially. And, you know, the sequence events, them planning why she decided to kill them because she's in love with Ida. Ida saying, just saying those 3 words, they should die, or whatever the fucking words were. that you get this in basically a extended sequence / monologue. I would argue that this would be a much, much better movie if we were very specifically and tactfully given pieces of those scenes throughout and not in one chunk. Because you can manipulate the impression that those specific moments have in flashback on the audience and on their relevance to scenes that are going on in the present timeline. For example, I'm going to make one up right now. If you show the interaction between Nora and Ida in a flashback when Nora and Ida are, so we're in the, let's say we're in the campfire and Nora is going off and snogging with Elias, and you see that has some sort of effect on Ida, right? That we don't know that in the version that it is now, the actual movie, we never really knew that Ida had a thing for Elias. That's never really stated in any way, and it's not even leaned in on when Nora goes to potentially like snog with him. I don't know why I'm saying snog, but that's the word I chose.
They live closer to Britain than we do.
There you go. That should have an effect on her, right? Because we learn later that the whole reason Nora constructs this thing is because she was worried that Ida was falling for Elias and that she was going to lose Ida.
Right.
So if that's the case, why don't, when Elias and Nora go off into the tent together, we get a flashback of the two of them hanging out together in Nora's room, working on a thing together and having a connection over the thing that they're working on. We can later back out of that in flashback when we've gotten more information and see that what they were working on was fucking murdering these two kids. Then we've built more of a foundation of the mindset and the backstory in moments leading up to reveal.
Right. I think that's a good observation and I think suggestion, because then that would have felt truer to kind of this story flipping, style or whatever, or structure, because how it is now, I was just trying to get invested in what was happening as it was happening.
Right.
And then as soon as I was, then the rug was pulled out from under me in a not fun way.
Right.
So yeah, if it's exactly as you said, then I would have been in a different mode of throughout putting together this story.
Because I think flashbacks are a tool, and they should you can use them to manipulate the audience, right? Nothing you show the audience has to be the truth.
Yeah.
It's all a way to steer the audience to think certain things, and flashbacks are a really useful tool to do that at times, if they're used properly. In this version, they did nothing with the flashback other than just information. In
this version, it felt like it was just on the cusp of being a slasher film, which a lot of people refer to it as, like a sort of, which I want to have a discussion on that and things of note. Okay. Is it a slasher film or not, kind of thing. But for me, it was like, I'm gonna say something, a sequence I liked in it as, a way of saying why the movie as a whole didn't work for me, because like, let me just say what I'm saying.
You sound like me.
Yeah. There was never, it was like there was never any room for suspense in like the actual horror movie sense for me. So there was the first kill that happened, and then the second kill that happened, the two boys' deaths. Right. It was in between those two was the only part of the movie where I sort of felt the suspense of like a slasher movie. Because at that point was, okay, someone has died. There is a threatening killer. It's been confirmed. And
we got to get the fuck out of here.
We have an idea of who it might be, but maybe there's a twist. It doesn't matter because the suspense is on. So, like, as I guess I already said, I kind of like the setup of like the story that we thought it might be. And then And then in between the two kills, it was like, okay, I'm having fun with it as a slasher movie. But then
they paused the movie.
Yeah.
They literally paused the movie so that Elias and Ida can stand in the woods together and have a conversation about the nude pictures. It's like...
Right, wouldn't you be rushing to the
Get
car?
the fuck out of there. And also... have that conversation on the run or what the fuck ever. Like, this is a thing that I really, really abide by, and I think actors in particular need to know this. Directors definitely need to know this too. Behavior is not independent of dialogue, right? They should be happening at the same time. Anytime you're having a scene and you stop what you're doing or what you naturally would be doing in that scene to deliver a line, you're in fucking trouble.
Right. Well, we should have had, there could have been an interesting conflict there of Elias being like, what are you doing? We got to be sprinting as fast as we can.
That's right. And her delaying
them,
them, then we go, ooh, what the fuck's she doing? Why is she doing that? And then he can ask why the fuck they're doing that.
Right.
Yeah, come on.
Because at that moment, I was like, you got to save your friend.
Yeah.
But then they were like, actually, let's stop to talk about these photos again.
Right. And
both of them.
Yeah.
I already kind of said too, like felt so many steps ahead that it never settled in the present. That's like another maybe sort of how I felt emotionally watching it. You're talking about how you liked it was shot. So here to sort of shift gears into a more practical thing. Okay. The lights at night do bug me that much. Like, I know it's a personal preference thing, but
it's a hard problem to solve.
I've gotten into little, like almost little tiffs with my DP on this. We shot a cabin in the woods horror movie
that's right. Yeah.
And shoot at night and stuff. And I'm like, I look to my favorites are like Invasion of the Body Snatchers from the 70s, where the night scenes, and American Graffiti, where it's just like there's a whole scene and conversation, you can't see anything that's like happening.
Yeah.
It's like night. I really like that. Yeah. And I have seen I saw a short film recently that was pretty well done. It's like a horror short, and it was the first film shot entirely with like night lighting with a new, with a camera that can get to that level. So I'm pretty open to that too, but there's just something about that aesthetic of like a huge old light lighting the forest and having that strong moonlight. I'm just not into it, even if it is like, and maybe
even if it's artistic and pretty.
Yeah, well, I think it's more that sort of like what we were talking about, that tonal line it was writing of like being something gritty and realistic versus something like a Scream movie or like a more conventional slasher film. So like in those films, obviously, do whatever, light Nev Campbell however you want. Let's make it all shiny and bright. This is a big budget movie.
You know what I think you're forgetting? I think you're forgetting that this is taking place in Scandinavia. It's so close to the Arctic Circle. They're so much closer to the moon. That moon is so bright.
In fact, the moon is actually above Lake Bodom.
The forest. Yeah. It's actually below the tree line.
That's just, I don't know. It's a personal preference thing.
I totally get it.
I want us to, even though there may not be an easy solution around that, I'd rather challenge that.
Yeah, it is it's a fucking challenge.
Yeah,
finding tonally your version of how to shoot at night, if that's what you're doing, is a fucking challenge.
Yeah,
just good luck.
I think it was, again, just what I was wanting from this movie is just wasn't what it was. Where like I would have been down for a conventional, stark, kind of eerie, moody, something that's, I wouldn't want to even call slasher because of the based on true events thing, but something that can really get under your skin, which it could have done off the initial
that's an
setup.
Interesting point. This is what didn't work, I guess. It never got under my skin in any way.
Only that tail ending that I said, that sequence for me was really standout, unsettling.
Yeah, it wasn't for me.
Yep. I mean, which I don't blame you after a whole movie that's not that.
Yeah. I like I said, just the mouths being glued, I thought was cool, but we didn't really get anywhere with it. And why?
Yeah.
Because it's fucked up and creepy?
Okay. I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Things of note.
Yeah, I think we should.
Things of This should be interesting.
So I had brought up, is this movie, is it so aware of slasher conventions that it doesn't even, you can't even call it a slasher? Because that's what people kept referring to it as a slasher film. In one review, it's like, I want to see this guy take on the Friday the 13th franchise. And I'm like, no, this was not.
No.
This is, as far as a slasher movie, it was kind of
It's
the
not.
worst. Yeah.
It's not a
then
slasher
bad
movie. It's not at all. I mean, I don't think it is at all.
Right. The setup seemed like it could have been a slasher film, but as soon as the idea of the first twist that comes of like, oh, we aren't just here to smoke pot and fool around, we actually want to recreate this thing and didn't tell you about it. Even that sort of started skewing from what felt like a slasher film. It started feeling like, okay, this is the sort of more story elements than I even, need or want. It could have sustained being a slasher with that. But then again, as soon as that first kill actually happens and first, twist happens of, it's the girls.
Well, and I think that's precisely what people are saying, in that it subverts the slasher thing. It sure does. It's not a slasher.
Right.
They say it might be, and then they go, just kidding, it's not. So sure, if you want to say that subverted the genre, yeah, or it's just not that genre.
Right. That's exactly it. That was
You
more my
decide.
take on it versus it was not it was
So
not one in the end.
I would say no, it's a psychological thriller. That's it. It's a fucking psychological thriller.
Mm-hmm.
It's a thriller. I mean, it's a twist movie.
Right. Like the setting and the characters being teenagers and that the kills are stabbing isn't actually enough to make it.
Yeah, those things are not, how would you say this? Those things are not mutually inclusive.
Yeah.
like just because you have those doesn't make it a slasher.
Yeah, exactly. But I think people are quick to label it that because of they want to.
And somebody got stabbed.
Yeah, because they want to be able to say, oh, we know these are in slasher movies, makes it a slasher.
Right.
So there was that I was curious to talk about, but I don't think we have to explore it anymore. We were both on the same page, I guess. But I had sort of brought this up earlier, how what you said something you liked about it was the sort of like extreme high emotions when you're a teenager and like the different ways to deal with that. So I'm like, yeah, that's true. That was in there. That's interesting. But there are these other things going on it too. So, So what was kind of interesting was how those things in themselves yet... Okay, let me back up here. So the one that I latched onto out of those was I liked the stuff that was like, it about people's obsessions with, true crime kind of thing.
Yes.
And
which I it's a bit, I love true crime.
Yeah.
Like I listen to multiple true crime podcasts.
Especially when it's, a case that's like, oh, this occurred in 1960, because it almost takes on a more lore that we can detach from and feel less guilty about being so, interested. I almost said enamored, but because it does get us excited. And we hesitate to use the word cool, but like it's equatable to how we feel. So
is what you're getting at is that you present this thing that is of high interest and that people get into, and you kind of never do anything with it?
That's in my what didn't work for me, for sure. And we could have mentioned this in that context.
Because that kid, there's this whole, like, his whole character and motivation is predicated on being interested in this true crime thing. Or this murder. And that, there's no real thread.
Yeah. But, okay, again, what was interesting, this is things of note here.
Right.
What was interesting to me about it. Shit. And remember, like, what I was saying, like, even the actual ending of the new group of kids showing up, which was like, oh, presumably now
they're kind of there for the same reason.
The more recent murders took place, too. They're there for that. So those, all interesting ideas and sort of a through line. But I guess, what I thought was interesting, how this approach to it, it's sort of it sort of put them in the clear as far as coming across like as more offensive than if they had just or not, I don't want to say offensive, but it's like they were less apt to be disrespectful to the original murders.
Oh, that's interesting.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
like maybe they kind of shied away from going down a pathway where they're really exploring those because they were actual murders.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might be right.
Yeah.
You know what they say? Nobody's as polite as a Finn.
Is that what they say?
I don't know. I just made that up. But they seem real nice.
Yeah, exactly. No, and it is, relatively smaller country. So like these, the original murders that happened, it's like everyone knows about them.
Yeah.
And I think I read in a review, the director's like, everyone is somehow connected to someone who is
Wow.
involved with that,
That's crazy.
Like everyone knows someone who
Wow.
who's, was neighbors with one of the kids or whatever.
Huh.
That kind of thing.
I do think, kind of on that same note, and just kind of because, like I said, I find true crime stuff fascinating. This is a very interesting case and unsolved. Like there is no, they have no fucking idea who did it. And even just reading the Wikipedia page on the actual murders, it's got some.
Well, here's what I thought was
interesting
really
information.
interesting about the case, because that's I didn't read too much about it, but that's what I know is the surface level thing is like it's an unsolved mystery. So
Yeah.
I assumed, that means they all died, but no, there was one survivor. I thought that was really interesting
In the original case.
In the actual original case.
I know.
So it was.
And that dude.
He suffered terrible injuries and mental trauma.
And also.
Fuck. Sorry, I never like to swear. I let Tim do all the swearing on this podcast, I bet. But
45 years after the murder, he was put on trial for the murder.
Whoa.
Yeah. So, like I said, this is a pretty interesting case. 44 years, sorry. He was arrested, blah, 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 blah. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe I'm misreading this. Read into it, because it's pretty interesting. Because there is this weird overlap of him getting arrested for being that he was drunk, and I'm not doing this service at all. Like, read the Wikipedia page. It's crazy.
Great. Well, that we should have read it, and then we could have reported the more interesting things about it. Read it or don't.
There's a lot, and it's like we could go down this rabbit hole way too fast, and then this podcast would be 2 hours long. So,
you mean it would just be you just reading the Wikipedia page?
Yeah,
yeah. We don't need that.
Somebody else has done it, I'm sure.
My last thing of note, and I think another review. I just called this. But that the film crew was unable to shoot at the real Lake Bodom due to an Angry Birds theme park being built near the site of the murders.
What? Oh my god.
So,
there's a lot to unpack there.
Right. And maybe 5 years from now, Tim, you and I can get our picture in front of the Angry Birds theme park where this murder happened.
Jesus Christ. What
reviewed.
the hell?
Isn't that crazy? Oh, here's the perfect spot.
Yeah. What?
And that it's an Angry Birds theme park is being built at all.
I have an idea for the sequel to Lake Bodom.
What?
The owner of the Angry Birds theme park is actually the original killer.
Mm-hmm.
And a group of kids go to the theme park and uncover his diabolicalness.
Right.
And then you can have all sorts of fun theme park deaths.
Right, maybe he's just building the Angry Birds theme park to do like a real human Angry Birds,
Yeah.
like
He's trying to attract more kids to kill.
Angry Birds, like high stakes Angry Birds, like real life Angry Birds, because the game is like you're throwing,
and
you're trying to
these
kill
murders,
birds or something.
You're shooting birds at pigs.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you could be shooting kids at kids.
You should. This is so dark. The original murders were blunt force trauma, so maybe he used an angry bird originally.
Which I think does whatever we're we're giggling at here, I think it does get at like
so fucked up.
I think you could argue, and maybe this is a thing of note, like, I don't think someone would be wrong to just say that even this movie and the approach that it took, like where I said how it distanced itself by getting us to sympathize or like empathize with people who are just fascinated with these murders, you know, it feels less at risk of offending anyone or being disrespectful. Right. But at the same time, I don't think someone would be wrong if they were like, movies that do this at all, just like imagine if that was like your parent who was killed, or, you know, or someone you knew. Like, how would you feel if Lake Bodom?
Well, and where do you draw the line, right? Like, where do you draw the line between creating art and protecting people's sensitivities?
Titanic. Like,
I mean, yeah, Jesus Christ, every war movie ever.
Yeah, I know, and that's I do have that internal dialogue a lot of like, no, I mean, because I'm a filmmaker, I will always fall on the side of like, it does more service to help us preserve and understand
and potentially talk about it.
Yeah, what happened.
Yeah.
Unless it's Strangers Pray at Night, then it's just exploitation.
Yeah, there's a line. We have to figure out what it is and try to be on a good side of it.
So this was just a sort of newfound territory of that whole line exploring.
Yeah.
I thought.
Yeah. I think, here's the thing. They could have made this exact movie and it could have had nothing to do with Lake Bodom.
Yep.
Or the history of that.
Yeah.
So they are, in that sense, exploiting the fact that this murder happened and the name recognition of it.
It probably is just because they're from there, the filmmakers, so
agree.
They know about it. And
but they are using it for that reason.
Yeah.
Right? Like, to some extent.
I felt like since they're there and everyone knows about it, it's like, well, why fake it if we can
I'm not against it. I'm just saying like that's a large part of their consideration.
Yeah.
I have one thing of note, which I think would be interesting to ask somebody from Scandinavia. So using the name Nora for essentially the antagonist, it makes me think of the most famous Nora in theater history, which is Nora Helmer, which is from an Ibsen play, a Norwegian playwright, called A Doll's House. And the basic premise is that a mother of a couple kids is very unhappy, and the whole play revolves around her ultimately deciding to leave her family, which was a big fucking deal. It was written in 1879, or it premiered then. So at the time, like, to have a mother abandon her kids was like, what way, like, you're like the most evil person ever. And it created this conversation about what it means to be a woman, and it's a really great play. So I wonder if using the name Nora is significant at all, if that's if it was purposeful or if it was just coincidence.
Yeah, it just struck me as an incredibly like Scandinavian name, or like,
yeah, it may just be that. It's a common name.
Yeah. But I don't know.
I don't know either.
Well, maybe we'll get the chance to ask the filmmakers someday.
Yeah.
So let's remember that. And in the meantime, can we move on to our recommendations?
I think we should.
Do you have a recommendation? Because you have to.
I do, and now I'm forgetting the name of it. You know what I think? Actually, I'm going to recommend. I didn't do this last time, did I? The Exorcist TV show.
No, you did not.
Dude.
I recommended it to you off screen or off air. How far through are you?
Finished season 1.
So did you? Okay.
So good. It is so good.
I got to talk to you off the air because I don't want to spoil anything. It is so good.
And so
my friend, thank you, Jesse, who may be listening to this. My friend, I've thanked him for listening to this before, but he's the one who recommended to me. I watched it, and then I recommended you to watch it. So pay it forward.
It's so good. And also, last night I turned the original Exorcist on, and
it's not a light watch.
No, but I love it. It makes me giggle a lot. I don't know why.
I mean, last time I saw The Exorcist recently, I posted on our Instagram story on Dismembering Horror, yeah, I went to the 45th anniversary screening?
Sounds
and
about right.
Ellen Burstyn was there, as well as William Friedkin.
Yeah, man.
And I got some good front row pictures of them.
It's so good. What I realized in watching the original, when I was watching the TV show, I was thinking, I guess, oh shit, am I spoiling this? Does it matter? Does anybody care?
Yeah, don't. I know what you're going to do. Don't.
Okay, well, I'll say this. They are sequels to each other. We know that. The TV show is a sequel to the original movie.
Actually, we don't know that. I would argue that spoils it.
Really?
Yep.
I mean, it's based on his second book.
Yeah, no, going into the show, I'm like, this is just some Exorcist show.
Well,
you know?
okay, that's fair. But I guess all I'll say then, without spoiling anything else, the casting is fucking really good.
Yeah.
Like, really, really, really good. And, like, kind of blew my mind.
It was cool because, like, for me, we're just geeking out with this show now. Do watch it. We recommend Dead It. Hopefully this encourages you other horror fans to check it out. It did have that sort of, like, you know, network TV gloss to it, but it was just that the story, like, I loved, the story and the actors. It was just so neat how they sort of cracked making an Exorcist TV show. Yeah. That even though it wasn't my favorite style, I didn't care because it was everything else was so great.
Well, and it's a bummer because they only did 2 seasons of it, and
I think it's a blessing that there was a second season.
Yeah, that may be true.
A bummer than there being one.
Yeah, I'm excited to get into the second season. What do you got?
I recommend Dead, another podcast, because we had recommended it some before. I don't listen. It makes it sound like I listen to a lot. Maybe I am more now. I like the more like limited scope podcast, you know, where it's just like, like you just had me listen to, you recommended You Must Remember This, Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi. I've been enjoying that. So this was one I've always had this fascination with Natalie Wood's death.
Oh,
and sort of, I mean, it's talking about unsolved mysteries, but it's a podcast called Fatal Voyage, The Mysterious Death of Natalie Wood. It's a newer podcast. It came out this last year. And it really, it delves into it in that sort of fully investigative way that feels like it pays respect to her, does it, and it's extremely cathartic for someone who's just like, can we just talk about like what even happened and pick it apart? Don't we owe the situation that much?
Yeah, and stop talking about the weird like rumors around it. You know, like there's all these fucking like conspiracy theories and whatever. It's like,
right.
Those may be based in something, but like, let's stop just throwing that out there because somebody said something one time and it sounded cool.
It parses those out because there's some things you'd hear about it and you'd be like, oh, whatever, that's just a conspiracy theory thing. But like, then in this context, it's like, no, there was actually people on a boat nearby who heard a woman screaming.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like, I would rather get down to the nitty gritty of why the conspiracy theory even existed in the first place than just throw it around willy-nilly.
Yeah.
I just used, by the way, used nitty gritty and willy-nilly in one sentence.
Let's get into the nitty gritty willy-nilly of it. You should check it out.
That's cool.
Fatal Voyage, The Mysterious Death of Natalie Wood. And the boat captain is like one of the sort of central figures in it are the boat captain and Natalie Wood's sister.
Okay.
And the boat captain speaks so lucidly and just strikes me as like a really affable person that he's just one of those people you only believe him when you read it versus sort of this like the Robert Wagner side of the story of like blah, blah, blah. Like he's just writing a book to get money and sort of people. Yeah. Please check it out. Do
I don't trust Robert Wagner.
Please do miss. Yeah, me neither. And it sort of sickens me now to see like him and Austin Powers and just fan conventions. They do confront him at a fan convention.
Oh shit!
So it's like you hear like this is what lying, manipulative people sound like. His response, and they get a psychologist to speak to how he responds. Anyway. Yeah. Please do Miss Wood a service. It's such a tragedy what happened to her. I'm kind of obsessed with it if you can't tell, and I think that's why it's like just so, it's so sad.
Well, and I think this speaks to kind of a larger point about why we're interested in this stuff. It's not because we're, we like the macabre or we like we get some joy out of it. It's actually, there's something deeper to it. It's that we are interested in injustice. And I think that's also part of why a lot of horror films work, because it's pointing at the fact that in the world, some crazy shit happens and horrible stuff happens to people, and watching how they deal with that is important. Yeah. And so I think I'm always reluctant when if I'm introducing to a stranger that I really like true crime, there's a little bit of tentativeness because, they might be like, what the fuck's, like, are you a psychopath? Like, what the fuck? Why are you into this dark shit? And it's like, because it matters. People have been killed. Like, we should know and find out and seek justice for that. And learning about the psychology behind why certain things happen and people do certain awful things is fascinating, because it gives us a better sense of what it means to be human and to live among other humans that have suffered tragedy.
And to shift that more from true crime to horror films, it's more of a self-reflexivity that occurs.
Yes, exactly.
Which is, I hope this is an ongoing question in our podcast we touch on, because my dad will always ask me, like, so why do you like about horror movies, kind of thing. And I never have too much of an easy answer, because there's so much I've read and people have said so much about it. But for anyone who asks that, it's usually feels like you automatically could never explain it.
Yeah.
So I think that's where I get tripped up and why it's an ongoing, interesting thing to explore. How about you get that hat out, Tim, and we figure out what we're watching next week?
Oh, I forgot that's what we do here. Where is it?
That's why I say you have the hat. Great, it's right there.
Yeah, it's in its spot. It's on its shelf. Wait, did you pull last time or did I?
You did.
Okay.
You said, I remember you saying Lake Bodom.
Oh, that's right. I got so excited. I wanted to pull.
This is why we take turns.
What is it? What is it? What is it? What is it? What is it?
Maggie.
Maggie, yes! Arnold!
From 2015, Arnold Schwarzenegger zombie film.
Have I ever told you that Arnold was like you know how every kid has like I mean, maybe not every kid. Lots of kids have like their go-to sort of action hero when they're little.
Stallone or Van
whoever
Damme or Schwarzenegger.
Right. Schwarzenegger was mine, full on.
Or Jackie Chan. Or...
Yeah, I watched every I watched every Schwarzenegger movie up until Last Action Hero, and then I stopped.
You mean you didn't see the one where him and Sylvester Stallone escape from a super prison?
Oh, I actually did see that one.
I watched that too. And now we get to see Maggie.
Cool. I'm excited.
2015. Me too.
We'll figure out where to find it, but if you get a chance, go find it and watch it before next week.
Great. Well, you've if you're listening to this, you already know where we are. You found us. Well,
That's right.
You can find us wherever you have found us. And you can also find us at dismemberinghorror.com.
Yeah, and on iTunes and all those things. And also tell a friend.
Yeah.
If you're into it. Why not?
Because you probably have friends who like horror movies and watching them and talking about them.
I put it out there the other day on Facebook. I just was like, who of my friends are into horror films and podcasts? And like a handful of people raised their hands. And I was like, cool.
They bit.
And I was like, I had no idea that any of you were into that. So here you go. Listen to this shit.
All right. Well, thank you regardless for listening. Thank you. We appreciate it.
We love you so much.
And we'll see you next time for Maggie.
All right. Bye, guys.